All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Now, Nigeria's central bank has opened a window for businesses to expand and invest, cutting interest rates for the first time since 2020, as inflation shows signs of easing and the economy strengthens. The 50 basis points reduction in the benchmark rate to 27% marks a modest but symbolic shift from aggressive monetary tightening, signaling the need to balance vigilance on inflation with support for economic recovery. Governor Olayemi Cardoso said the Monetary Policy Committee's decision was made after reviewing macroeconomic developments. According to the CBN governor, the committee's decision to lower the monetary policy rate was predicated on the sustained disinflation recorded in the CBN's past 5 months, projections of decline inflation for the rest of 2025, and need to support economic recovery efforts. He explained that the new measures were aimed at strengthening monetary control, improving liquidity management, and reinforcing the Treasury single account TSA regime. Well, let's talk to Dr. Emeka Okengu, who is an international business and project consultant. He joins me live from our Abuja studios. Dr. Okengu, thank you so much for your time. It's good to have you this Friday afternoon.
Pleasure to be here to talk with you. Good afternoon, Tola.
Yes, finally, we have seen a shift in the monetary policy rates. Yes, well, I know sometimes you don't like to dwell very much on these figures, but I think it is significant that the CBN has decided to take a shift. What do you make of it?
Well, I think I like you captured it very succinctly when you used the word symbolic. It was, I think that captures, the spirit and letters of what has happened. But recall also that the CBN governor also reiterated that they were pushing towards, a single digit, and that was their target. So I think it is both what's noteworthy, it's both celebration worthy, and I think it's kudos. It simply means, like I told you the last time we spoke, that what is important is that we have moved away from the edge. Okay, we have moved very, 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 and we are moving steadily, away, and then moving towards back into the path of, prosperity. We haven't gotten there yet, but I can tell you, is a work in progress, and it's most commendable from my end. We should all commend CBN for a good job done.
5 months consecutively, we've seen a decline in inflation, and this is part of the reasons why the CBN says we are doing this. So what do you also make of that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We are moving. Are we moving at the pace we should move? If you just oppose that against our population growth, that maybe you begin to see some few red lines here and there. But what is important is that there's a steady move. We're making some upward movement, and that's what this is all about. And again, with the CBN projection that this is going to be sustained for another maybe going forward, it's a very positive sign. And again, you can even begin to now see the impact of that on even the exchange rate. Okay, dollar is dipping. It's never dipped before the way it's dipping now. It's left the 1.5 mark. I think it's now, oscillating under, the 1.4 something. Yeah, and we have to just get it down to where maybe again under 1,000 naira. So this is all what it is, okay? Because development is all about your currency management is very central. The power of your currency, the access of this currency to businesses. Because in your intro, I think part of what I thought I heard you say was that, banks can now begin to lend and then lend well. That's all what can happen in the long run. So like I said to you, like I keep saying to you, it's work in progress. They should be commended, okay, but we are not yet, at El Dorado.
So now that manufacturers, the impact is still a bit, let's say, limited, but now that they can lend more, my next question would be, what do we do to address the issue of food inflation, which you normally talk about? There is still that challenge that in the marketplaces, people still complain that prices are still on the high side.
Agro practices are still very much, if you may, pristine or pedestrian. Okay, it's still very subsidiary. It's still very subsistent. So what we need to do is to also up our game there. It's all about volume. the moment you can be able to create these big, huge volumes. Again, let's even digress a little bit to just oppose what's happening with food prices and then the food imports. Now, part of some school of thought is that, oh, because we're importing so much, we're trying to drown out the local producers. I mean, that sounds like a paradox in a country that's looking for so much food. But again, if you look at it on the other flip side, you find out that if we were producing as much as we needed, what we might now be doing is not to be import dependent, but now be able to now do some substitution here and there where we're not able to meet, our daily or our national needs. But there's really no products, no agro-allied, no agricultural products, no food products that we cannot grow here, none. We cannot produce here, none. So it's all about that volume. Now, the volume will not only require funding, so it's reducing interest rates might not make funds, do the magic. You also require planning, okay? You also require technology, all right? You also require infrastructure. So, well, you could say that the money will bring all this, to bear, yes, but a lot of planning has to also go into it. Now, even if you had banks lending at LIBOR rates of maybe under 5%, and you don't have these back ends that I've just listed, you might still be having some challenges of your post-harvest losses, transportation, storage, processing, packaging, and all that. So, like I said, it's a whole, we need to look at our food systems, a little bit more deeply, a little bit more thoroughly. What do you require? Everybody seems to look at food from the perspective of the farmer. You must also look at food from the perspective of the man who's producing or delivering energy, the man who's delivering transportation, okay, the man who's delivering packaging, okay, and the man who is now, doing the markets. So we need to, if we want to be playing the way we want to play and the way we should play, a lot of these factors have to be, taken into consideration.
There is a bit of stability, even my guest earlier agreed to that, in the foreign exchange market. And our reserves are also doing pretty well. Dr. Kengo, I'd like you to also speak to this and the level of confidence that gives us as a country.
Well, I didn't hear that question very well, but I heard you talk about foreign exchange. Is that what you were trying to
Yes. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, a little better, yes.
I said we've had a bit of stability in our foreign exchange market. Our reserves are doing pretty well, far above $43 billion, according to the CBN. What level of confidence does that give us as a country, and can it attract the needed investments?
Oh, yes. What it does is that it makes you credit worthy. I mean, what your reserves do is that they make you worthy of doing business with. That's the essence of your reserves. When you have reserves, you're building, some security, around the investments that you're attracting into your country. So it's a first sign, okay? But unfortunately, that's just all that is required for you to be able to draw these investments. Security is a very key issue. And some of this infrastructure that I listed earlier, especially energy and the transport infrastructure, is also very, very key. But yes, when people now look at your books, I mean, that's why you say to somebody, my account is in the red. Who wants to lend you money when your accounts are in the red? And that's why they will now start looking for guarantees and all sorts of instruments to hedge, make certain that their funds are protected. But if you are in green, if your account is doing very well, is flourishing, 80% of the times people might not even want to bother, with asking you to bring securities. They could just simply, based on your cash flow analysis, invest in your business. And that's even more important because if cash flow, secures it more than your interest or more than, your securities that you're presenting. So it's a very positive sign that we're ready, for the world. We're ready to do business. If you had balances that were not too comfortable, people would tend to start asking for all manners of things to discourage, that investment from happening. But with us, at 43 billion, and we're counting, and we're back onto the, we're heading onto the path we should be.
I'm thinking loud that maybe in the next meeting in November, maybe there could be another reduction. Some analysts are saying that.
I believe so. I think the reduction is going to be continuous. I do believe so. But the worry, which I think both of us share and most people share, is okay, even if you reduce this to 0.5 0.01%. Is it inclusive? Is it impactful? Is everybody beginning to feel this impact? And then this comes to, the question of food security or food sufficiency. And like I said to you, if we don't do the right things, even if you had interest rates, at zero, you won't be able to have food. You need to produce food to have food. And for you to be able to produce the volumes of food you need, you require more than hoes and machetes. Okay? You require to put in technology. You require to put in skills. You require to put in equipment that can be able to support, commercial production of whatever it is you're doing. So, yes, these things, everything we have listed is fine, but it has to be tied to a plan, okay, that is also measurable, a plan that's also milestone. Even if for the next 6, 7, 8 months, which it is hopeful, it brings relief, okay, at least to our formal sector. But we still have a very huge burden of the rail sector, and then, a population that is faster growing, our production, our productivity, if you may. So there has to be some alignment to be able to get people to get back, into meaningful work, give them life skills that can be able to help them, be able to now not only be productive to themselves, but also now contribute to nations' growth through payment of their taxes and other requirements of citizens.
So looking ahead as we move towards the last quarter of the year, what are those policies? No, policies are already instituted, but are there any quick wins for government that would help us get this inclusive growth that we talk about? Because now the figures are looking good, but the man on the street is not really interested in those figures. He wants food on his table. He wants access to funds, access to credit. That is what the man on the street wants. So what are your projections for government? Are there any quick wins anywhere for them?
Yeah, I think that the government should aggressively pursue this policy of local government autonomy. That's where I think the beginning point will be. Getting the local government to begin to do what they should do, because they are the closest to the people. In fact, I take it even a little further from the local government and take it to the community development associations, okay, which is also listed in the Constitution. I think the state governments should do more, build more synergies, and not synergies that are top-down, but synergies that are bottom-up, with the state governments and, of course, the local governments at that lower level. That way, I think we should be able to probably do some statistical calculations that is mathematical about who is where and what they are doing there. Okay, call it a census, call it whatever you want to call it. We need to have, figures we can trust in doing our planning. I think we should be able to do a technical, both physical, human, infrastructure audit to be able to know what's where, what's been sold, what's left, and then, find new synergies amongst states that are contiguous. That's very, very important, because everybody is not in Abuja. A lot of the successes that we seem to be celebrating today best impacts the public sector, the formal sector. Now, you have the rail sector where a lot of action doesn't seem to have we have not seen any much of a stagger. There hasn't been any much coming from that angle, and this is where a lot of our citizens really live, really. So if we are intending to expand our tax net, I think what is important is that you must also now make certain that those who are going to be paying these taxes, or more people can pay because they are earning. It's not, I don't think it's something to celebrate that if you are earning under 800,000, don't pay tax. And then somebody goes to say, I'm not earning that much, I don't want to pay tax. I think it should be the other way around. Why shouldn't I earn more so I can be able to now perform that civil duty that is going to help our economy to grow? So in this state, I think it's important that federal government now begins to not just throw money or give money, if you may, whichever we want to put it, to the states, but get more involved in the things that are doing with the money, because these are the things that impact, directly on the citizens. And that is the only time a being by me, whatever language you want to talk about this hunger, can now be properly addressed, in my view.
Finally, you touched on the tax laws, which is very, very important, and we expect implementations from January 2026. But do you think there seems to be a lot of misinformation in some quarters? Look at the issue of the fossil fuel tax that came up. Look at issues that are coming up. People go on social media and we hear different things, trying to cause. Do you think more of education and enlightenment needs to come from the committee or from the FRS or wherever?
Yes. In fact, this morning I was riding with my neighbor, out of where estate, and he said something very instructive. He said that he doesn't think that government is communicating enough, and you remember in those days, you used to have the government information machinery, being that authentic voice of government. But these days, you find that government is more into now saying it's fake news, is not from us, doing retractions, instead of now being able to create that information system that makes it possible for everybody. And again, I'm not even talking about the electronic systems where you needed a radio. You had them driving with cinema buses. In those days, it used to be combi buses to give information. So I think what is important is that this thing has to be, disseminated in a language everybody can understand. Every language you need to put it in, every radio station you need to get it to, so that it becomes some government program where you can be able to hear this thing firsthand. But as long as you have the social media where you and I can own televisions, broadcast what we want to, with just the touch of a button, you stay in a corner of your room and you become a Tolu, who's been trained to do what he's doing. A man who's selling whatever he's selling can become you and start dishing out his own news. So again, I think that there has to be some way to check it. There has to be some way to make certain that those who also now disseminate this news are brought to some kind of either justice or reined in or something, because it can be quite destructive, I can tell you. Okay, when you read things that are not real, and those kind of news are the ones like Tolu, bad news, spreads like wildfire. Okay, so these things that can scare people into getting into more trouble. But again, let me also say this: 80% of the times, again, there are no smoke without fire. So sometimes government will give these snippets, they don't give the full details, and then people now begin to give it their own interpretations. Like about the story of the elephant and the 3 blind men. 3 of them were correct in the analysis of the elephant, depending on which part of the body of the elephant they touched. So there has to be clarity of information. There has to be a system that makes certain that what the woman who sells gari knows, the professor also knows. What the physician knows, the driver also knows. And it happened in the past and it worked. So I think that is where I think this miscommunication is all coming from.
Dr. Emeka Okengu, International Business and Project Development Consultant, thank you so much for your time on the program. We do appreciate this. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend too, Tolu.
All right then.